In this chapter, we're going to be creating a new window layout. We're going to change the way the windows are situated here and the way they're scaled, just to allow ourselves more room for modeling and a simpler layout. So we're also going to get rid of some of the windows that we're not going to need right now or ever really, like the outliner up here. It's not necessary to have while you're learning Blender, so we're going to get rid of that. And I'm going to show you how to resize, split, join windows, separate them, swap them, all that boring stuff, but very necessary to create a layout that enables you to do what you need to do as easy as possible. And on that note, let me just show you real quick how to maximize your workspace. If you mouse over any window in Blender, you can press the Control and Up hotkey in order to make it full screen. Then press Control and Up again to return back to normal. And this works on any of the windows. So let's get started. Resizing windows is fairly easy. At the edges of each window, if you place the cursor there, the cursor is going to change to two arrowheads connected by an edge. So then you could just click on that, left click on that and drag it. And you can size all these windows however the heck you want. So that's resizing. So let's split windows now. Let's say we want to change this middle view here into two different windows. At the top right and bottom left of each window is a set of diagonal lines. If you place the cursor over that set and left click and drag it to the left or down or up or whatever, it will split that one window into two. So let's take the bottom set of diagonal lines here and left click on that and drag that up, and there we split that one window into two windows, vertically or horizontally. So that's how you split windows. To size windows, you simply click on the edge and move it. To split them, you click on the diagonal lines and drag it. Now we got all these windows here and we just created a big mess. So let me show you how to join windows. Now make a note that you can only join similar sized windows. For example, I can't join this one window here with these two here because they're not the same size. But these two windows right next to each other are the same size. So we can join them by left clicking on the diagonal lines we used to split them, but dragging it over to the window next to it. And you'll see that arrow. And if you drag it to the left and right, you can choose which way these windows join together. So there, we just clicked on the diagonal line, dragged it over to the window next to it, and we joined two windows into one. Now say we wanted one of these windows to actually separate from the interface and become its own individual window. Well, to separate it, hold the Shift button, left click on the diagonal lines, and simply drag. And it separates that window into its own individual window that you can minimize, maximize, and close. I'm going to close that out since we don't really need it. And we can swap windows now too. So say for example, this bottom window here is the text editor. And let's say I wanted the bottom window, this text editor, to actually be where this 3D view is up here. So I want to swap these. To swap them, you hold Control, left click on the diagonal lines, and drag it up to the window you want to swap with. So there we have it. We just swapped the placement of both of those windows. So to recap, to resize a window, left click on the edge and drag it. To split one window into two, left click on the diagonal lines in the corners and just drag it into that window. To join two windows of similar size, left click on the diagonal lines, drag it into the window you want to join with. To separate a window, hold Shift, left click on the diagonal lines, and drag, and you have a separate window. To swap, hold Control, click on the diagonal lines, and drag it up to the window you want to swap with. And that about does it. You can also right click on the boundary between windows for split and join options. Now that we know how to manipulate all of the windows, let's organize this into something that we can work with. So we're going to create a new layout, and let me real quick show you the different layouts that are default in Blender. This is the default layout that we made a complete mess of. If you go into the menu up here in the top header, we can choose different screen layouts. For example, if we choose animation, this default layout is going to give you all the windows you need to create an animation. And same thing with game logic and all of the others that are in there. They're self-explanatory. For Python scripting, it gives you some Python windows and the text editor. And we want to create our own layout. So go back to the default layout and click the plus button next to it. And that will give us a new default layout. And let's rename this by left-clicking on the field there. Let's rename this layout to, I don't know, no good with names. There, that looks like a good enough name to me. And let's begin getting rid of windows and sizing them the way we want. So I'm going to first join these together and join these together. Move that back over. So this is what it looked like in the very beginning. So we're back to the regular default layout. Now I'm going to join the 3D view here with the timeline by left-clicking on the diagonal lines and dragging it down. And I'm going to join the properties window with the outliner above it, and then join the 3D view with the properties window. So we're left with one giant window. This is all the 3D view window. Now, for animation purposes, I'm going to split the 3D view and change the bottom window into the timeline. And I'm going to drag down the 3D view all the way so that only the header of the timeline shows. And this is where the important stuff is. It shows us the starting frame and the ending frame of the animation, and also the current frame. Now on the right side of the 3D view, I'm going to change that to the UV image editor. This is a window we'll be using a lot when we're loading in textures to UV map to our objects. But we can also just, stretch out the 3D view as far as possible so that the image window is mostly hidden. And I'm going to split the 3D view again, and on the left side I'm going to change that to the properties window. So there we have it. 3D view in the middle, image window on the right, properties window on the left, and the timeline at the bottom. So that is what I found to be a very efficient layout for modeling in Blender. So to make sure that this new layout is saved, press Ctrl and U to save as a startup file. So every time you load Blender now, it's going to load this layout. To load in the default factory settings layout, you can go to the File menu and click on Load Factory Settings. And it will open up Blender as it would originally open up after you just downloaded and installed it. Press Ctrl and N to reload the startup file, which Ctrl and N is basically making a new file. You can also go to File and click New, and it will open up a new file. And it gives us our custom layout back. So now that we've got our own custom layout finished, we can move on to the next chapter.